Hello and welcome to Captains of Industry. I'm Chris Bishop. So this week, electric cars, they're on their way to Africa. A lot of them are here, no doubt at all. But when and how will they make their way to the roads of the continent, especially in countries short of electricity to start with? Now this week we have a captain of industry who can give us the inside story, all of this and more. His name is Bruno Grippay, the Regional Director for Africa, Middle East and India for Nissan. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
And just to start off with, I mean, electric cars, it's one of the big stories as we speak. And do you reckon how many in this continent so far actually operational?
I would say a few hundred. I can tell you for Nissan, we are about 400 with the Leaf, which was the first car that has been launched on the mass market in 2010. Yeah.
So it's still in its infancy in terms of, but it could actually transform not only not only the sort of landscape on the roads, but also the atmosphere.
Yeah.
I mean, every city in this continent, some worse than others, you can hardly see through in the morning after the morning commute. How quickly do you think it's going to be, or how long is it going to take for electric cars to overtake the traditional petrol?
It will take time. It will take time, at least.
Are we talking generations or decades?
No, we're not. I think it will happen in this generation. It should. And I feel that the young generation is really passionate. You know, they are all extremely concerned about the climate change. We've seen that every day in the news. So they will push us to develop this technology and change the
What are the challenges? I mentioned in the intro there that a lot of, as you know, a lot of the countries in this continent, including this one, which produces something like half of all the electricity in Africa, is struggling to keep the lights on. How does that leave electric cars?
Yeah, so actually there is a benefit with electric cars. And I'm always saying electric car will not replace the ICE model one-to-one. Electric car will also help us to change the overall ecosystem. And I will give you an example. You are talking about the blackout. So you will be able to use your electric car to bring back electricity to your home. So you charge your car during the night when it's cheaper, and during the day, if you have a blackout or if you need electricity for air conditioning or whatever, you use electricity you have in your battery in your car. So you bring that back to your home and you save energy, and also you have a better life, you know.
It sounds good. How much of it is the electric car likely to be a people's car, though? I mean, the one thing that drove petrol cars is that everyone could afford them, and petrol was relatively cheap in the 60s and 70s. How likely is it going to be the same with the price of electricity going up on this continent?
Yeah, the biggest cost of the car is the battery. And you know, the battery costs have dropped significantly since 2010, maybe 8-9 times lower. So now we can develop affordable electric cars. So we can bring cars in the next few years that will have an entry price which is very comparable to ICE model. So then this will help to accelerate the sales volume of the EV cars in the market. Yeah.
In the meantime, what is the industry, well, and your company as well, is one of the biggest producers, trying to do to cut out this problem of emissions? Because either way, I don't know whether the electric cars are going to come quickly enough.
Again, I think it will come. I would say we have to wait in this continent, maybe 3 to 5 years, but there will be an acceleration. And we have to work together with the government, the authorities, but also the city mayors to implement incentive solution to accelerate the deployment of the sales of electric cars. And it will happen.
What about the regulations and legislation? I don't know how well you know your history, but at the end of the 19th century, the first petrol car made by the Benz company was brought to Johannesburg, one car, and it was demonstrated to the people, and then after that a coffee company bought it as a promotional thing for that. But it didn't go on the road for 2 years because there were no regulations for petrol cars. So the authorities had to wait. You had to sit in a garage for a couple of years until they could draw up the regulations. How likely something similar could happen with electric cars?
Yeah, it's interesting. I heard this story yesterday in the conference. So, this is why, as I said, we need to get the support of the authorities to bring regulation and a way to develop EVs in the market. So we need to do that, and we have to do that together. It's very important.
We
will not do that alone. You cannot expect a car company can develop and accelerate the market alone. We need the support of the authorities.
What's the feeling you're getting so far? Obviously, you've had talks with the authorities and government so far.
I think they are very, very concerned about the situation, and I don't know very well the government here, but I'm sure they are very interested and supportive of developing this technology.
What other problems do you see you think have to be overcome with the electric cars revolution? You think? What are the problems?
I think one thing is also people have to change their behavior because they will have to drive differently. And there are a lot of ways, with electric car we are bringing also autonomy in the car. So people will have to give up some control of some features, and this will be very beneficial for the road condition. The road will be safer, cleaner, less congested, and there will be more respect between each other on the road. So this is all beneficial for the society and the individuals as well.
But then again, as a driver, what's the kind of comparison? If you didn't work on that, the costs between an electric car and a petrol-driven car, I mean, will it be more expensive or less expensive?
Well, as I said, so far, until now, the electric car was more expensive at the beginning. You have a Leaf in US is around $30,000, up to $45,000. So it's more expensive, but now with the drop of the cost of the battery, we will be able to sell affordable electric cars. On top of that, the total cost of an ownership, what we call TCO, is very beneficial for electric car because you buy your car, but then after that you only have the electricity, and it's very cheap, the electricity, cheaper than petrol. And also the maintenance cost is very low for electric cars, so it's all beneficial on the long run.
So when do you think it'll start accelerating? I mean, a few hundred electric cars in this country, maybe a few thousand on the continent. When will we be getting shipments coming through Durban Harbour of tens of thousands of electric vehicles, all made here even?
Well, actually, we should eventually do that here, So if we want to have an expansion of the volume, we have to produce locally. So what we need is incentive at the beginning to be able to bring cars, import cars here, stimulate the market. So for this, we need some support from the government on import duties. Today, the import duties, I learned yesterday as well, the import duties for EV cars is higher than ICE. So we have to change that, we have to change that, give incentive to the customer to get engaged and encouraged to buy the car. And after, then the volume start increasing, localization will come afterwards. Yeah.
How likely is it you'll get that government support in terms of the dropping of tariffs and just general easing of the introduction of the electric cars?
I think the government will support that. Again, as I said at the beginning, we will be pushed by the young generation to develop these technologies, cleaner technology, and the government will follow with us on that.
Okay, and capitalism industry, we do take a little look at the story also behind the man as well, who's at the helm of the particular company we're dealing with. Just tell us, how long have you been in the car industry?
Since more than 30 years.
Where did you start at?
I started in Europe, in France, because I'm French, but then I moved in different countries. I went in US, I spent almost 10 years in Japan, in Brazil, in India. Now I'm based in Dubai for the Africa, Middle East.
What was your first job in the car industry?
I was in human resources. So nothing at all with product, And I spent a few years in human resources. I hope it helped me to manage people afterwards, but yeah.
And most people do. Do you remember your first pay packet, how much it was?
It was in French franc, so probably in euro would be 1,500 euros, very small.
But you could probably do a lot with it in those days. But your background, you said you're from Bordeaux in France. I'm always interested in how people. Were your family involved in the motor industry at all?
Not at all. No, not at all. I'm the only one.
You're the only one. Your mother and father, what did they do?
Oh, my father was a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it's interesting because he has lived the evolution and the transformation of the photography when he was working in Kodak, when they had all this problem, when came the digital and the smartphone and so on for photography. So he lived that situation. And this is probably something that we will live in the automotive industry. So we have to be prepared for that. And yeah.
So, okay. And was he a newspaper man or was he a magazine photographer? Or?
No, the industry. He was working on a a company that was making cameras and stuff like that. Yeah.
I see. Okay. And what is it, do you think, in your early career that inspired you to become, well, what you are now, the manager of an entire region for one of the biggest car makers in the world?
What I'm passionate is the mobility transformation. This is what makes me passionate about this activity. Because broader than car only, this is all the mobility transformation. That is one of probably a key driver for all the climate changes and all the situation we are today. We have to think about new ways to move around in the world, in our city, around our place, and even in the world, And this is all this mobility transformation that is very exciting. And I want to work on that, yeah.
But there's an issue for you. I mean, if one thing that this continent could deal more of is advanced public transport. I mean, you've seen the Gautrain here in South Africa. In a small way, it transformed, took a lot of traffic off the road. But my view is, I've been in cities across this continent, it's just too thin. There's not enough money behind infrastructure and public transport. I know it's you sell private cars, but what's your view on that?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because we are a company, we are selling private cars. So for us, it's a bit complicated to handle this mobility transformation because we still have to develop our business. And we want to develop our business in broader than only car ownership, to think about future mobility services and car sharing and all these new activities or new projects, new business opportunities that the market is bringing. And this will help also the infrastructure transformation. I think this is an opportunity for developing nation. You have the infrastructure to be developed, so we have to make this future infrastructure align with this mobility transformation, which is an opportunity for developing nation. Maybe better than mature market, because mature market, they have already an infrastructure developed for car ownership, so we'll have to transform that. Here, we can develop something from scratch.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, a lot of conferences you go to, people say, oh, it's a great idea, we should have more railways, we should have more different ways, even talked about trams and all kinds of things here, which would be a good idea. But when it comes to getting the money together to pay for it, sometimes it's a problem. I mean, governments say they haven't got the coffers. Private industry sometimes here can be a little bit hesitant to get involved. What do you think the answer is?
Well, my answer would be, we need to think at a city level, city by city. And when I look at what happened in the world is the places where we have the most interesting development are inside city, within cities. So if we can develop a real new, generation 3 infrastructure in some of the key cities, smart cities, I think we will make a big jump.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the first half. I'm talking to Bruno Grippay, the Regional Director for Africa, Middle East and India for Nissan. Stay tuned in the second half. We're going to be talking a bit more macro, talking about trade. We'll be talking about the new Africa free trade area, what could be there. And also, we'll be talking about that old chestnut, Brexit. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Captains of Industry. I'm Chris Bishop. I've got with me here Bruno Grippay, the Regional Director for Africa, Middle East and India for Nissan. Now, we've been talking in the first half about electric cars and what have you. We may be returning to that, but let's talk about some of the macro and wider issues here. Firstly, the stuff that's top of the news this month, Brexit. No one seems to know quite what's going to happen. The other day I was speaking to another car company here who said like something 10,000 of their cars are in jeopardy now. They were exporting to Europe. They don't know what's going to happen. What's going to happen to Nissan? I mean, you produce in the UK and export to Europe.
Yeah, we have a plant in Sunderland, and we have also a big technical center in Cranfield. So we have a big team in UK. I cannot speculate so much about that, but yes, we are exporting. This plant in Sunderland is a big export hub. So this definitely, if there are import duties or stuff, export import duties in the rest of the continent, it will have an impact. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and as a company, how can you deal with this, or are you just waiting to see which way
No. The company is working on that, but it's quite. There is no communication, not so much communication. I think we have to take a safe approach and wait and see what's going on. But there are plans, of course. Yeah.
Could it impact at all on your African operations here?
It will some way, yeah.
In what
but
way?
But the same. When we import vehicles from Sunderland to this continent, it might have an impact as well. Yeah.
Okay. So okay, and do you think that Europe and Africa as well? Because a lot of companies here in Africa, as you probably know, are looking to do more business in Europe as Britain looks for new trade deals here. Do you see that happening at all?
Well, it should. Actually, we're back to the previous discussion. If we can invest and localize some EV technology here in Africa, then we can export. This will be an opportunity to export back to Europe. Yeah. So there are opportunities for Africa, of course.
And while trading bloc is breaking up in Europe, as you know, there are plans for a new one here in Africa, which a lot of people will say it's the biggest story, economic story in this continent for a century. I think so. I think there's a lot to go through before we actually get there. But how does a big manufacturer like yourself view something like this African continental free trade area?
Well, it's always, for a company like us, it's always a big opportunity, free trade agreement is always a big opportunity to reconsider the way we have the location of the production and how we can manage that to the benefit of the final customer, because at the end, this is a benefit for the final customer because we can provide a product at a cheaper price. Yeah.
And you manufacture here in South Africa. Where else on the continent do you manufacture?
Egypt.
Yeah.
Egypt and North Africa. Yeah.
So, okay, so you do stand to get quite a bit out of it. How confident or otherwise are you that it will, when do you think it might happen? I mean, we talked about electric cars in the first half. It may take a while yet. What about the African continental free trade area?
I cannot speculate on that, yeah.
No one knows.
It's very difficult, yeah. No, and I don't know enough. I'm not an expert in this continent, so I don't want to speculate and say something wrong. But I know that it takes time, Yeah.
And the other thing I was the other day I was talking to Lesetja Kanyako, the Reserve Bank governor here, and he was saying that the settlement process might be a lot simpler than a lot of people think. He was saying that West Africa, East Africa, they already have these little, for SADC, there's a little settlement operation. He said if you combine those three, you could have, for people like yourself doing trade, like a complete settlement operation for the entire continent.
Okay.
Well, I mean, how does that make you?
It sounds very nice, right? Yeah.
What sort of opportunities do you see with the free trade area? How could a company like yourself take advantage of it?
Well, we could bring more products. And again, I'm back to the EV. This could be a way to localize production of EV, and maybe even because we have other technologies. We have in Nissan we have a technology called e-Power, which is similar to EV with the same driving mode with a motor, but you have an internal ICE engine inside the car that is recharging the battery. So thanks to that, you eliminate the range anxiety that people might have with the EV model. This could be also a source. A technology that we could bring in the future. So there are opportunities with this free trade agreement to increase the production opportunities in this market.
And just give us an idea of how many vehicles you move in this continent alone, your company, roughly.
I think it's 500,000.
Okay, 500,000. Okay, so you stand to make quite an increase on that.
I'm talking all market. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, overall, the economy of this continent, a lot of people have still got reservations about it. It's not quite the Africa Rising story it may have been 10 years ago. As somebody doing business on this continent, what's your feeling about it?
I think I talked already about the young generation. And this is fantastic opportunities here in this continent. When we look at the demographic perspective, there will be a young generation that will develop in this market, and this is good for our business. And again, this is good for our new technologies because the young generation will be eager to drive and to use this new technology, EV and e-Power.
And also a tremendous asset. It's one of the largest young populations of any continent on Earth, but also a risk as well, because I mean, one of the things this continent is struggling for is to get jobs for people, and to get people into the economy. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of educated people out there who are unhappy and very restive.
Yes, but this, it's also the climate change, all the focus we are doing on that to develop new technologies, new services, new way of living together. This will create a lot of new jobs. I think we are looking at the job situation with the current existing position or job we have today. But these will develop completely new opportunities.
Just give us an idea, a car manufacturer like yourself, just look ahead the next few years. What are the kind of jobs in the multiplier around your company that could be created that you perhaps would never even dreamed of 30 years ago when you started?
Yeah, so I don't know, I think traditionally we sell cars, so our business is car ownership. And in the future, probably we'll have to move to services, mobility services, car sharing. There are a lot of opportunities here. And also third-party services. And we could develop jobs as well in this arena. If we enter in this business, we'll have to develop completely new jobs. When I look at the mobility services arena, when I look at what happened on the market and all these startups that are developing new ideas, new concepts, it's unlimited. It looks unlimited, the level of opportunities we have in front of us.
Talk a little bit about car sharing, because I mean, it's something that's been talked about in this country for 20 years. Probably before your time, but I remember a time when certain lanes were opened on the highway for people who were car sharing. And if you were on your own in a car, you had to stick to the other lanes. They opened these free lanes. I don't know, it was interesting, but it only went on for one day. What more do you think could be done around car sharing? This is, again, I'm back to my previous one. We need to think about the city. We have to look at that within a city, the management of the city transportation. And within a city, there are a lot of opportunities. You can remember that one of the evolution as well we are in mind is the autonomy, car autonomous. So we will develop that combined with car sharing, car hailing, subscription, and all these kind of potential services. This will completely transform the way we are moving around in a city. What about the infrastructure as well? What are your concerns there? As you know, I mean, I probably like you, I've driven on roads from here to the Mediterranean Sea on this continent. And one of the problems there is that the money is short in government coffers for maintaining these roads, etc. I mean, you can have the greatest, most advanced car on earth, but sometimes it can be literally torn to pieces by some of the roads we have. But what are your concerns there? Do you think it's time for private money, which is involved to a small extent now, to get more involved in the actual infrastructure, the tarmac that's needed? Yeah, probably. Yeah, we need to think about a holistic view. We need to work all together. I think it's important that we cannot have a car company anymore working isolated. It's important to bring together the public sector, the private sector, the car companies, and think together about what could be the future mobility ecosystem in a city and around the city. So this has to be a joint development and effort. How likely is it that soon we'll have sort of Nissen Highway somewhere, I don't know, that car companies like yourself will be also putting money into the infrastructure and the roads? Well, I don't know if we will eventually put money on the infrastructure, but we'll work together with private sectors or public sector that are ready to put money. What can car companies do apart from obviously put money up for tarmac? You know, what can car companies do? No, we can support on the parking, the location, where we park the cars. How do we also manage because car sharing will also will require some dedicated location to put the car, to pick up the cars, to allocate that to, and we will have to develop that together with the public sector. So we started this discussion half an hour ago talking about electric cars, and I'll just return to it. You're talking about young people and jobs. How far away do you think, when there's more than just a few hundred electric cars on the road here, we'll have young people setting up maybe electric charging stations to help service these cars. I mean, how far away is that instead of petrol stations?
Yeah, but you know, we are always talking about charging station and the infrastructure for charging station and saying that this is a problem for developing EV. I'm not convinced. I will tell you, I'm driving a Leaf. I never use a fast charging station. I always charge my car at home, at the office. So, and it's the same. We have statistics that are showing that probably 90% of the EV drivers use home normal charging for their car during the night. So very barely they will use a fast charging station. So infrastructure will have to be developed, but it's not the only reason for limiting the development of EV at this stage.
What about people who don't have garages and things? I mean, because one thing on this continent, a lot of people still park their car out front. What do they do?
Yeah, but then this is what I'm saying. We need to work together with the public and the private sector to develop this kind of the technology infrastructure for them to be able to charge their car. But it doesn't need to be all fast charging stations everywhere. We can develop home charging boxes for everybody.
Just lastly, very briefly, you've been in the car industry more than 30 years. There was a time 20 years ago people were saying, oh no, it's finished, it's no longer mass production, it's going to be a dinosaur. Just give us a last thought from yourself, very briefly, where you see the car industry going on this continent.
Yeah, it will not be a dinosaur. We will always be very excited. And I will tell you, the excitement will be even more with EV cars. When you drive an EV car, you never come back to an ICE model. It's so fantastic. So this excitement will continue.
That was Captains of Industry, and I'm Chris Bishop. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. I was talking to Bruno Grippay, the Regional Director for Africa, Middle East and India for Nissan. From me, Chris Bishop, it's goodbye.